Hello, good morning, and welcome to Unacademy, a one-stop destination for the English medium civil services aspirants. Let's get started with the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper. These are the topics that we shall be discussing today from the international edition of The Hindu newspaper. These are the topics, page numbers, and their relevance, whether relevant for GS 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. Let's get started and look at topic number 1. Congress callously gave away Katchatheevu Island to Sri Lanka, says the Prime Minister. What's the context? An RTI query was submitted by Mr. Annamalai, who is the BJP chief in Tamil Nadu. And in response to that, the reply was given by the Information Commission, which was quoted by Prime Minister Modi, according to whom Congress callously gave away Katchatheevu Island to Sri Lanka. Now let's understand this newspaper article in slight detail. And in fact, right now, a statement has been issued by the External Affairs Minister, S. Jaishankar, who says that Prime Minister Nehru wanted to give away this island, and that is why India gave away this island to Sri Lanka. Katchatheevu, in Tamil language, Katchatheevu stands for barren. It is an island on the Park Strait, northwest of Jaffna. This is a 285-acre uninhabited spot in the Park Strait between India and Sri Lanka. It's no more than 1.6 kilometers in length and slightly over 300 meters wide. This Katchatheevu Island is considered to be the result of a volcanic eruption, and the only structure that you can find here is St. Anthony's Church. Why? Because this place is barren, uninhabited, uninhabitable. Why? Because there is no source of drinking water. That is why this place cannot be inhabited. But what's the larger issue? It is argued that historically, Katchatheevu was part of the Jaffna kingdom. But there are people who dispute this as well. For example, W.T. Jayasinghe, who was Sri Lanka's Foreign Affairs Secretary. He says that Colin Campbell who was the governor of Ceylon then, currently Sri Lanka, then Ceylon. In 1845, he issued 3 notifications, and through these 3 notifications, he wanted to underline the significance of the boundaries. He wanted to nominate the boundaries of the Jaffna kingdom. And in none of these 3 notifications, Katchatheevu is mentioned. So what are we discussing? Congress callously gave away Katchatheevu to Sri Lanka, says the Prime Minister, and this is in response to the RTI query submitted by the BJP chief in Tamil Nadu. Now what is this Katchatheevu? It is located on the Park Strait between India and Sri Lanka. It is an uninhabited island, can't be inhabited. Why? Because there is no source of drinking water. The only place that we find here is St. Anthony's Church. The fact is that previously it was argued that it was part of the Jaffna kingdom. Then it became part of Madras Presidency. But there are scholars who dispute that Katchatheevu was historically part of Sri Lanka or Jaffna kingdom. For example, W.T. Jayasinghe, who says that Colin Campbell, who was the governor of Ceylon, in 1845, he issued 3 notifications demarcating the Jaffna kingdom. And none of these notifications mentioned Katchatheevu. So it was never part of Jaffna. It was never part of the current day Sri Lanka. It was always part of Madras Presidency. But the year was 1921, when both India and Sri Lanka, both were British colonies. They both claimed Katchatheevu. And this dispute could not be resolved till 1974. Because in 1974, Indo-Sri Lanka Maritime Agreement was signed. And according to this agreement, this Katchatheevu island was given to Sri Lanka. When it was given to Sri Lanka, it was also agreed that Indian fishermen can still fish near the waters of this island. But although there was no clarity on this fishing agreement. Why no clarity? Because Sri Lanka said, according to this treaty, Indian fishermen can rest at Katchatheevu. They can dry their fishing nets at Katchatheevu. Indian fishermen or Indians can visit St. Anthony's Church, that too without visa. That's all. This is the fishing agreement between the two countries. Indian fishermen cannot fish in these waters. Maximum what they can do, they can rest there, they can dry their nets, or they can visit St. Anthony's Church without visa. 2 years later, in 1976, during the emergency period, another agreement was signed between the two countries, according to which both the countries' fishermen should not fish in the exclusive economic zone of each other's countries. That means Indian fishermen should not fish in the exclusive economic zone of Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan fishermen should not come and fish inside the exclusive economic zone of India. But the fact is, this Katchatheevu island, it falls at the edge of the exclusive economic zone of both the countries. Hence, it is uncertain. And that is why repeatedly we see that Sri Lankan Coast Guard, they are arresting Indian fishermen. And ultimately, we have to mount diplomatic pressure on Sri Lanka to release these Indian fishermen. And that has been the stumbling block in our relations between India and Sri Lanka. It is argued that Pandit Nehru thought that there is no strategic value to this Katchatheevu island. In fact, Indira Gandhi also thought that there is no strategic value to this Katchatheevu island, and we can only deepen our relationship with Sri Lanka if we gift this part of territory to Sri Lanka. In fact, a petition was filed also in the Supreme Court, because in Tamil Nadu, all the political parties, or two major political parties, which is the DMK and the AIADMK, they want this Katchatheevu island back. They want this island to be retrieved. In fact, there was a petition filed by the former Chief Minister J. Jayalalitha before the Supreme Court, saying this was done illegally. This gifting of this island was done illegally. Why? Because in 1960, in Berubari Union case, the Supreme Court had said that if you want to give away or gift a part of your territory, you can do that. Why? Because you're sovereign. And as a sovereign country, you can gift a part of your territory. You can also accept or acquire a foreign territory as well. But this you can do only through a constitutional amendment. Only a constitutional amendment should be passed, because of which you can gift a part of your territory. Something similar, which was done in 2015 between India and Bangladesh, when 100th Constitutional Amendment Act was passed and the land boundary agreement between India and Bangladesh was formalized. Under this agreement, India gave 111 enclaves to Bangladesh. Bangladesh in turn gave only 51 enclaves to India. But through this constitutional amendment, the land boundary agreement between the two countries was formalized. So if you can gift a part of your territory, you can do that only through a constitutional amendment. This Katchatheevu island, it was given through an agreement between the two countries, not through a constitutional amendment. But then in 2013, the Attorney General, and then in 2014 again, the then Attorney General, Mr. Mukul Rohatgi said that this was given through an agreement. And if we want to take it back, we have to fight a war, wage a war against Sri Lanka. Number one. Number two, the then Attorney General in 2013 told the Supreme Court that no part of the territory was gifted. No part of the territory was gifted. Why? Because Katchatheevu, it was a dispute. So Sri Lanka also claimed Katchatheevu. We also claimed Katchatheevu. So it was a part of the dispute. And that dispute was resolved through this treaty. It was not that we gave away a part of our territory to another country because there was a dispute on that territory. It was never part of us. That is why no Constitutional Amendment Act was required. But that is what you need to know regarding this controversy on Katchatheevu Island, sparked by an RTI query. Let's look at another topic. Democracy is in danger. This is basically a political news. But we need to extract polity news from this political news. And what is that polity news? Leaders have urged the poll body, which is the Election Commission of India, to ensure level playing field and flag coercive action by the central agencies. Under Article 324 of the Constitution, we have a constitutional body called Election Commission of India. The power to superintend, direct, conduct and control of elections is vested with this constitutional body called Election Commission of India. And this Election Commission of India implements something called Model Code of Conduct, which we have discussed previously. And the very purpose of this Model Code of Conduct is to ensure a level playing field. And it is the job of the Election Commission of India to organize free and fair elections. Clear? Free and fair elections. The year was 2019. Lok Sabha elections were to be conducted. The opposition political parties approached the Election Commission of India that the central government is misusing the central agencies against the opposition political parties, thereby violating free and fair elections, thereby disturbing the level playing field. Please interfere. The Election Commission of India did intervene. In fact, what ECI did in 2019, issued an advisory to all the central agencies that what you should practice impartiality. You should not be partial in favor of the ruling political party. You should not be impartial against the opposition. Various chief election commissioners have now spoken. And this is not mentioned in the Hindu newspaper. This is mentioned in today's Indian Express newspaper. Can Election Commission of India intervene in this situation? Yes. Something they did in 2019. They can do it again in 2024. But on what grounds? We have discussed the case against Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, the Delhi Chief Minister, who is arrested. And we discussed a couple of days ago something called vicarious liability. Under which Mr. Kejriwal has been arrested. Which means although Mr. Kejriwal may not be directly involved in the scam, but since he is the Delhi Chief Minister, he heads the cabinet, he is the convener of the Aam Aadmi Party as well, that means the proceeds of that crime went to Aam Aadmi Party, and as the convener of that Aam Aadmi Party, you are liable. That's what we call vicarious liability. Which also means that maybe the assets of Aam Aadmi Party may be frozen. Without money, how can any political party contest the election? Which means if right at the time of the elections, the central agencies, which can be income tax authorities, which can be enforcement directorate in case of Aam Aadmi Party, if it freezes the bank account of Aam Aadmi Party, it violates the level playing field. And it is the job of the Election Commission of India to ensure level playing field. So in this case, can Election Commission of India intervene? Former Chief Election Commissioners say yes. Why? Because they say Election Commission of India cannot intervene when it comes to matters related to India's internal security. When it comes to matters related to India's national security. So if there is a politician who is arrested because of his links with terrorist activities or terrorist organizations or unlawful organizations, or who is responsible for the terror acts himself, Election Commission of India cannot intervene saying you are violating the level playing field because this is a matter of national security. But if the accounts of the Aam Aadmi Party are frozen, which affects level playing field, and it has nothing to do with national security, former Chief Election Commissioners say Election Commission of India can intervene. If ED is against Aam Aadmi Party, we have Income Tax Department which is against the Congress, after the Congress. In the sense that Congress has now been issued notices after notices, and they will have to pay 3,567 crores as income tax. In fact, some 100 crores have been withdrawn by the income tax authorities from the Congress bank accounts. Without this money, Congress will not be in a position to campaign in these elections, and it would disturb, violate level playing field. And this is where Election Commission of India, just like in 2019, can intervene and maybe ask these officials from ED, officials from income tax authorities, that what is the rationale behind these arrests? What is the rationale behind these motives? Can it wait? Because former Chief Election Commissioner S.Y. Qureshi says that we follow a medium. We follow a maxim, which is anything that can wait should wait during elections. So if you want to pursue against opposition political parties or politicians, but if during the elections it is not necessary to arrest them, it is not necessary to freeze their bank accounts, it can wait because we have to ensure level playing field. Once the elections are over, you can go back and do your work. So that is the polity news that we need to extract from this political news. Democracy is in danger, warns the opposition. Clear? Let's look at another topic. Kerala High Court stays Centre's order on ferocious dogs because there was an order which prohibited the import, which prohibited the breeding and licensing of 23 ferocious dog breeds. Let me tell you something, and let's elaborate this article. There was a time when students and journalism students would be taught what is news, what you have to cover in news, in newspapers, in bulletins. And journalism students would be taught if a dog bites a man, it is not news. But when a man bites a dog, it's news. But today, a man bites a dog, it is news. For example, in June 2023, there was a notification issued by the Nagaland government saying you can't eat dog meat. Matter went to the Guwahati High Court, Kohima bench of the Guwahati High Court, because they share a common High Court. And the Kohima bench of the Guwahati High Court stayed this notification saying this is the custom of the Naga people to eat dog meat. So man eating dog is news. Dog eating man is also news. Why? Kids particularly, they have been mauled by the stray dogs in India. And that is why repeatedly we see in newspapers stray dog menace news being reported. Not just that, it's an election cycle. Couple of months ago, a dog belonging to one religious community or a member of one religious community bites the child belonging to another religious community. There were clashes between the two communities. The point is, India has the dubious distinction of being the rabies capital of the world. India has the dubious distinction of being the stray dog capital of the world as well. And this comes at a time when we have committed that we will eradicate rabies by 2030. That's our commitment. But the point is, according to livestock census of 2019, in India we have close to 1.5 crore stray dogs, which means more instances of rabies, more instances of stray dog bites, and ultimately it is causing a public nuisance and menace as well. But then we are torn between two choices. What are these choices? Dogs are also the best pet of man, a man's best friend, or a human being's best friend. But at the same time, these dogs, these are the descendants of wolves. And wolves are territorial animals. Similarly, dogs are also territorial animals. They want to guard their territory. They want to expand their territory as well. And in response to that, we have rules. We have Prevention of Cruelty to Animals Act 1960. We have dog bite rules as well. According to these rules, dogs or stray dogs can be euthanized, can be killed if these dogs are incurable or these dogs are mortally wounded. According to Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita, which will come into force from June 1st, which replaces Indian Penal Code, if your pet animal attacks a human, you can be fined up to rupees 5,000 along with imprisonment for 6 months. But there are experts who say euthanasia may not be the right solution to solve this menace of stray dogs. What can be the best solution is sterilization. For that, let's take up a case study. In Jaipur, there is a non-governmental organization called Help in Suffering. Help in Suffering India is a non-governmental organization. The year was 1994. They did a pilot study. What pilot study? In some parts of Jaipur, not in the entire city of Jaipur, in some parts of the Jaipur, they did a pilot study. And I'll tell you what that study was. And by the year 2002, in those parts where this Help in Suffering India operated, the number of incidents of rabies fell down to 0. But what about in other parts of Jaipur where they did their survey or did their study or their pilot program? The incidence of rabies continue to rise. But what exactly did this Help in Suffering India did? What did they do in 1994 till 2002? What did they do? They had trained dog catchers. And listen to me carefully. They have trained dog catchers and they catch these stray dogs from a territory Then they transport them in buses to help in suffering India hospitals, where they have the trained veterinarian doctors, they have the trained anesthesiologists as well. And then what happens? Sterilization programs take place, wherein if there is a female dog, her ovaries, her uterus is removed. If there is a male dog, his testicles are removed. And then these stray dogs, they are kept in these hospitals for some days to recuperate, and then they are transported back to the same territory where they are picked up from. And this is very important, because I told you that these dogs, these are the descendants of wolves, and they are the territorial animals. They want to guard their territory, they want to expand their territory as well. And these stray dogs, once they are picked from their territory, if we keep it like this, then the dogs in the neighboring territory will now expand to this territory and will then mate with the other dogs here, which basically means we will not be able to control the population of the stray dogs. And in urban India, there is no shortage of garbage on which these stray dogs feed upon. That is why these stray dogs were taken from this territory, they were operated upon, sterilization was done, and after a few days they were brought back to the same territory. And this has led to the reduction of rabies cases in those areas in Jaipur to zero as compared to other areas. But not just this. Why euthanasia is not a solution? You tell me why euthanasia is not a solution. Why? Because we can't kill 1.5 crore dogs in a single go. Which basically means we might euthanize some dogs, but then other dogs would start reproducing again, because dogs reproduce twice in a year, which means more and more younger dogs will be produced. And these younger dogs are more likely to cause rabies than the older dogs. That is why euthanasia is not the solution. Then what is the solution? Sterilization is the solution. Euthanasia would have been the solution if the rate at which you cull these dogs is more than their reproduction, which you can't match because dogs reproduce twice a year. In that case, the only other alternative is sterilization. And this sterilization will help once we complete 70% sterilization. This is what we can do to control the stray dog menace. And there is another solution given, that we should set up dog sanctuaries or dog parks, where if those who are the dog lovers, they would come and visit these dogs at the dog sanctuaries. They will come, interact with them, feed them, and then go back. This is how we can keep our civilian population safe from rabies, safe from stray dogs, particularly our elderly and the children. That's what you need to understand from this article. Kerala High Court stays centre's order on ferocious dogs, but link it to the larger menace of stray dogs. Is that clear? Let's look at something else. The ART or ART of India's HIV/AIDS response. Some facts. April 1 marks a very important day in the history of the world's response towards HIV/AIDS. On April 1, 2004, Indian government had launched what is called free antiretroviral therapy. For whom? For those people who are living with HIV/AIDS. And this has been proven to be one of our successful decisions in our response towards HIV/AIDS. How? HIV/AIDS emerged in 1980s. This disease was considered to be a death sentence. Whoever is infected with this virus, dead. But then, first antiretroviral drug was approved by United States Food and Drug particularly for those who are the sufferers of this virus in Asia and Africa. Then what happened? In 2000, United Nations General Assembly, there was a Millennium Summit because 2000 was the Millennium Year. Specific goal was set up that we have to reverse the spread of HIV/AIDS. For that, what was decided? That global fund to fight AIDS, tuberculosis and malaria was created in the year 2002. And what it did, it advocated that we have to ensure universal access to HIV prevention, treatment, care and support services. And that is how this program in the year 2004 was launched by the government of India, where free antiretroviral therapy was given to those persons living with HIV/AIDS. You need to understand that the key barrier to this antiretroviral treatment was high cost and unaffordability for individuals, for geographies such as Asia and Africa. In fact, there is something called cocktail therapy. What is that cocktail therapy? Or HAART, highly active antiretroviral therapy, which is a combination of 3 or more antiretroviral drug. This became available in the year 1996, but its cost was so high that it prohibited people in Asia and Africa, poor developing countries or underdeveloping countries, from getting access to this drug because its cost was close to $10,000 a year. People with HIV/AIDS, they were stigmatized. They lost their lives. And the healthcare providers, the hospitals, the dispensaries that we had, they felt helpless. Why? Because these drugs were unaffordable and they were unavailable for a massive population. And thanks to this ART, this free drug program launched by the government of India, we have been fairly successful in treating patients living with HIV/AIDS. But please understand, this ART program was not the only one responsible for our success. It's not that only the free antiretroviral treatment drugs that were given to those persons living with HIV/AIDS, that is what led to our success or some amount of success in tackling HIV/AIDS. No. What were the other reasons? Free diagnostic facilities were provided, where tests would be conducted to see whether you are suffering from HIV/AIDS or not. And that was available free. That has ensured that those who are identified with HIV/AIDS, those get treatment, those get the drugs. Attention was on prevention of parent-to-child transmission. Because one of the biggest problems that we faced, or big concerns that we faced, was the communicable nature of HIV/AIDS, where from parent, it gets transmitted to the child. And we have seen that 95% cases of HIV/AIDS is because of unprotected sex. The focus was also on how do we prevent, how attention should be paid to preventing this transmission of HIV/AIDS from parent to children. Our focus on prevention, diagnosis, management of some other diseases such as tuberculosis. Why? It is argued that those who are suffering from HIV/AIDS, they are more likely to suffer from TB as well. Why? Because it affects your immune system. It affects your immunity to fight other germs, although TB is bacteria producing or bacteria source of disease. But even then, since HIV/AIDS affects your immune system, it affects your immunity to fight against toxic germs, and as such, you can be subjected to tuberculosis or malaria. It was our focus on such diseases as well that has helped us in our fight against HIV/AIDS. But then the writers, they talk about the way forward as well. What is the way forward? What else do we need to do? Delayed enrollment to the art facilities is the biggest challenge to the national program. Number one. Number two, when you start the ART, when you start the treatment, you continue and you see the positive impact. You see that it is having an impact on you. And the moment you see that you are feeling well, this is where you start missing the doses, you miss the medicines for months, or completely drop out. Which basically means what? You become resistant to these viruses. You become resistant to these drugs, and then these drugs will have no impact on the virus. Sustained supply and availability of ART needs to be ensured by the national program, not just in every nook and corner of this country, but also in those areas which are difficult, which are with tough terrain, hilly areas, difficult border areas. That's something that this national program has to ensure. Not just that, there is a need to focus on private sector engagement. Private sector needs to be engaged so that we can take care of those persons living with HIV/AIDS. Constant training is to be provided. Constant training so that we have more and more individuals who can be trained in imparting the knowledge required to prevent or treat HIV/AIDS. Not just that. There is a need to focus on strengthening integration with other programs, something that we were discussing previously. It is our success that we have managed HIV/AIDS along with other diseases, for example, TB. That is what these authors are also talking about, that we need to strengthen integration with other diseases, programs such as HEPAT program on hepatitis, non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, because diabetes will also affect your eyesight, your kidneys, and over a period of time, that's what we call comorbidities, which means as a body, you can't fight against these pests or you can't fight against these parasites. Focused approach needs to be adopted to reduce preventable mortality. What does that mean? Preventable mortality. Systematic death reviews and availability of advanced diagnostics, where we can better look at how we can ensure that those deaths which are preventable, just because of the lack of attention, we are unable to save these individuals. High-tech diagnostic steps should be taken so that we can easily identify, diagnose these ailments, and ultimately have a national program to effect changes in all the parameters. That is what you need to understand from this article. Now let's look at another article. Workers, not tech, should be the state's priority. And this is in relation to Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, which is basically a demand-driven scheme where it has institutionalized right to work. Every household with adults in India in rural areas, if you want work, if you're looking for work, the state will provide you 100 days of employment. But yes, in manual unskilled work, manual unskilled labor. And for that, wages will have to be provided. And there are two ways of providing wages. One is account-based. The other is Aadhaar-based payment system. And these two writers are against the Aadhaar-based payment system. Why? In account-based payment system, if I am a beneficiary under MG Narega and I have to be given wages, for that, what do I need? I need to furnish some details. For example, what is the name of the beneficiary? What is the account number of the beneficiary's bank account? What is the IFSC code of this bank account? Once these details are provided, wages are credited into your bank account. This is one way. The other way is Aadhaar-based payment system. And what is this Aadhaar-based payment system? Where you have to provide your job card. In job card, your name would be mentioned, your gender would be mentioned, your Aadhaar would be mentioned, and this Aadhaar number will be your financial address. What do we mean by the financial address? That means now authentication has to take place. What is authentication? You are an MG Narega worker. You need wages. You go to a place where you need to provide your details, job card, and you have to provide your fingerprint or your iris scan on a POS machine, point of sale machine, where your fingerprint can be taken, your iris scan can be taken, so that the system can authenticate that it is you. Since you are you, that means you are the beneficiary, we will transfer this money, this wages into your bank account, which is linked to your Aadhaar. These writers say this system, Aadhaar-based payment system, has a lot of fault. What is the fault? According to Unique Identification Authority of India, there are two kinds of information which is stored because of Aadhaar. One is the biometric information. For example, your iris scan, your fingerprint. And this biometric information is accurately captured. Correctly captured. There is no problem whatsoever. But then we have another sort of information called demographic information. For example, your name, your gender. This is where those who enroll you in Aadhaar, they make the mistakes. So in your Aadhaar-based payment system, if your name has spelling mistakes, your authentication will fail, you will not get the money. If your gender is not properly matching, there is failure of authentication, you won't get the money. And these writers say, because of various reasons, this authentication would fail. I am into hard labor, so my fingerprints would have completely changed. Because of old age, my iris may have weathered some change. There may be internet issue as well. There may be false errors as well. There are lots and lots of reasons under which this Aadhaar-based payment system will fail. And according to these writers, what we have seen is that 5.2 crore workers, they were deleted from their databases. According to this Hindu newspaper article, 34.8% of the job card holders, they remain ineligible for Aadhaar-based payment system. So what should we do? Should we focus on tech, the Aadhaar-based payment system as a technology, or should we focus on the workers? What should be the priority of the state? State's priority, according to these writers, should be the workers, not the tech. In an era of increasing socio-economic inequality, intensifying precarity in work, diminishing social security, the priority has to always remain the workers and their livelihood security. But now there can be a question. So it basically means that we should go back to account-based system and not Aadhaar-based system. But there can be a question on your mind, why is the government insisting on Aadhaar-based payment system? Because the government has now made it mandatory for getting wages, MG Narega wages to be credited, you have to compulsorily enroll under Aadhaar-based payment system. Why? 3 reasons are given by the government. 1, it will remove duplicates. 2, payment failures would eradicate. And 3, timely payments would be credited to the beneficiaries. That means there are 3 reasons, 3 advantages set out by the government why they are insisting on Aadhaar-based payment system. 1, it will remove duplicates. Why? Because here you have the name of the beneficiary, you have the account number, you have the IFSC code. What if the same beneficiary has multiple bank accounts? You can give multiple bank accounts and get the money credited. That can't happen in an Aadhaar-based payment system because your Aadhaar is the financial address. The bank account related, linked to your Aadhaar, only that account will be credited. And you can't have multiple Aadhaar numbers either. There are experts who say, maybe this argument number 1 holds merit. Yes, Aadhaar-based payment system may be able to eradicate duplicates. But so far as these two other arguments are concerned, these are useless. Why? There will be payment failure. There are delays in wages getting credited. That is not the function of technology. That is the function of allocation of funds. We have seen that this year, the budgetary allocation of MG Narega has been increased to 86,000 crore. So there has been an increase. Whether there is a payment failure, whether there is a delay in payment, that is a factor of whether enough money has been allocated to the scheme or not. If the money which has been allocated is enough, there won't be delay in payments to the beneficiaries. And it is because of Aadhaar-based payment system that we see authentication failures are high. So the payment failure will be more in Aadhaar-based payment system than in account-based. But the government says no. Payment failure is mostly in account-based. Why if IFSC code is not correctly given? Is there 0 in the middle or is it O? What if the account number is mismatched? This leads to payment failures. Now here it won't lead to payment failure because Aadhaar number is your financial address. But there are critics who say we should go back to account-based payment system rather than Aadhaar-based payment system because workers and not the technology should be the state's priority. Is that clear? Let's look at something else. We will focus on the prelims now. Cardamom crops in Idukki begin to wilt in severe drought. And this is for the first time in the recent history that drought-like conditions have occurred in the cardamom sector in Idukki. Cardamom, it's considered to be the queen of spices. And it is grown in the evergreen wet forests of Western Ghats. Predominantly in 3 states. One is Kerala, the other is Karnataka, and the other is Tamil Nadu. Kerala is the biggest producer of cardamom in India, followed by Karnataka and then Tamil Nadu. What are the climatic conditions or the soil conditions necessary for the growing of cardamom? We see that loamy soil is well suited for this. The shady areas, and you would know that these loamy soils, they are also acidic in nature. And the specific pH varies from 5.0 to 6.5. But those areas, the windy areas, they are unsuitable for growing cardamom. And if you look at the elevation also, 600 to 1500 meters. If you look at the temperature also, the ideal temperature It's 15 degrees to 35 degrees centigrade. These are the conditions responsible for the growing of cardamom in India. And there was a time when India was the largest exporter of cardamom. But now we see countries such as Guatemala, which is now the largest exporter or the producer of cardamom in the world. We see Tanzania as well, Sri Lanka as well. These are the other countries which grow cardamom. And for the first time, we see that there are drought-like conditions which have occurred in the cardamom sector in Udupi. So the facts related to cardamom can be important for your examination. Clear? Let's look at something else. A record 60 traditional products from across India granted GI tag. Which are these products? Important ones that can be asked in the exam. Recent ones. One is Bodo Eri silk, which is referred to as the fabric of peace or ahimsa. And this is from Assam. The other is the Banaras Thandai, a drink made by blending milk with nuts, seeds and spices. It has also got the tag. And from UP itself, Banaras Shehnai has also been given the GI tag. And it is this Shehnai whose proponent was Ustad Bismillah Khan. In fact, when India got independence, there was a ceremony on the 15th of August 1947 at the Red Fort, and Ustad Bismillah Khan played Shehnai in that ceremony. And in the year 2001, Bismillah Khan was conferred with Bharat Ratna as well, India's highest civilian award. Another link because Mr. Advani and others were conferred with Bharat Ratna by the President of India recently. Clear? But the fact is, what is common between, let's say, China silk or Banarasi sari or, let's say, Venetian glass? What is the common link between them? That these products or these goods, over a period of time, they have built a reputation. And that reputation is because of their geographical origin. That reputation is because of the way in which these products are produced at a particular geographical area. That is how the year was 1999. Parliament passed Geographical Indications of Goods, Registration and Protection Act 1999. And GI tag is given under this law. And who is responsible for this? Controller General of Patents, Designs and Trademarks, who is the registrar for geographical indications. And this office is located in Chennai. These facts can be important. And this GI tag is valid for 10 years. Can it be renewed? Yes, you have to pay the fee and it can be renewed. Renewed again for 10 years. But what if you are an aggrieved individual? You are not satisfied with the geographical tag given to a product. Then you can file an appeal, and that appeal will lie before Intellectual Property Appellate Board, IPAB. And you have to file this appeal within 3 months of the grant of GI. If a product has been granted GI and you are dissatisfied with that grant, you can appeal before IPAB within 3 months of the grant. That's what you need to understand from this topic. Now, last topic, tourist revenue in Kenya climbs above pre-pandemic level. And this tourism in Kenya can be because of two things predominantly. One, Masai Mara, which is a national park, or it can be because of the beaches in Kenya. Masai Mara is considered to be the national park, but it is considered to be a national park where, or it is considered to be a game national park where wild animals can be killed through sport, where it is allowed to kill wild animals for sport. That's Masai Mara. And in fact, we know there is another national park called Kruger National Park in South Africa. In South Africa, which is also considered to be the biggest game national park in the world. And game national park, that's the concept that you need to understand for the civil services examination, is a national park where wild animals are allowed to be killed for sport. Clear? Masai Mara is known for the highest concentration of wild animals in the world. In fact, more than 40% of Africa's larger mammals can be found here. That's the link. Similarly, beaches. Israel is in the news these days. United States is also in the news these days because in a rare occurrence, the United States has abstained from the vote of the United Nations Security Council, which asked for a ceasefire by Israel in Gaza. The year was 1998, then again 2002. 1998, there was terrorist attack on one of the beaches in Kenya, Mombasa. And this attack was on the only hotel which was owned by an Israeli. Not just that, there was surface-to-air missiles rocked against a Boeing charter plane which belonged to Israel. That was Mombasa. And in 2002, there was an attack in Kenya, in Nairobi, which is the capital of Kenya, where US Embassy was attacked by suicide bombers, which led to the killing of more than 200 people. And at the same time, there was an attack. On the same day, there was an attack in Tanzania as well. Dar es Salaam, the capital of Tanzania, where again, the attack was mounted by Al-Qaeda against the US Embassy. So that is how the link, tourist revenue in Kenya climbs above pre-pandemic level, Masai Mara and the beaches. Let's look at practice questions for mains. 1. Enforcement of pet control laws, vaccinating dogs, spaying and neutering stray dogs. Spaying in the sense removing the uterus or ovaries of the female dogs, neutering, sterilizing the male dogs, removing their testicles, to reduce the stray dog population, and rehabilitating stray dogs in dog sanctuaries and shelters would resolve the stray dog menace in India. Discuss. If Parliament is the custodian of democracy, the Election Commission of India is the umpire of political morality to ensure that there is a level playing field. Write answers to these two questions. You can submit these answers in the comment section and other students can evaluate your answers. Maybe if you write your answers, our teachers would also be in a position sometimes to evaluate your answers and provide feedback. That is it from our newspaper analysis for today. I'll see you again tomorrow, 6 o'clock I'll see you again tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the morning, because I have the habit of taking classes 6 o'clock in the morning. Slip of the tongue. I'll see you tomorrow, 10 o'clock in the morning. Till then, have a great time. All the best. Bye-bye.